it's Kayla.
And Andy.
And the title of our video today is Tolerance Does Not Equal Approval.
Exactly. And I think the reason why we wanted to do this video was in the mental health counseling world, what I see all the time, and I'm sure you do too, Kayla, is that a lack of tolerance can be so harmful and so hurtful to people of all ages. You know, from your newborns all the way up to the elderly population, and so we wanted to kind of start a conversation about the importance of it.
Right, and we see that the lack of tolerance can be hurtful in all kinds of relationships. So that could be young children in their friendship, it could be an intimate relationship between adults, it could be in a work relationship with a colleague, parent-child relationship, family member to another family member, or even something as small as an interaction with a stranger in public.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get too far into this video, let's kind of go over some definitions about tolerance and approval and kind of what we're talking about.
Okay, so again, we have a cheat sheet over there, so we're going to be eyeing over there a little bit. So this is what Google has to say about tolerance. So tolerance is having a fair and objective attitude toward others who may be different from you. And those differences might be their opinions, beliefs, values, practices, race, religion, or nationality. And tolerance also is a willingness to accept feelings and habits and values that are different from your own.
Exactly. And so what Google says about approval is that approval is officially agreeing to something, accepting something as satisfactory, or belief that something or someone is good or acceptable. And those last two, I think, are the big two that we're going to talk about in this video. So accepting that something is satisfactory, or belief that something or someone is good or acceptable. And I think that when I see people that are not tolerant of others, it's usually because of one or two things. Either one, it's a lack of knowledge or understanding that things could be different than their own experiences. They're just not able to get their mind to that place. And then the other one is where people, I think, feel that tolerance and approval are the same thing. So if I tolerate something, that means I'm finding it acceptable, which is not the case at all. So whether that is with parents and behaviors in children, or adults and different choices that different adults make, or different symptoms that are harder to see, to believe whether or not those actually exist or not. So I think that's where a lot of that lack of tolerance comes from, is because of those two things. And we were kind of talking about a good example to kind of demonstrate kind of what we're talking about earlier.
Right, so Andy and I, we were talking about how smoking, or people who choose to smoke. So let's say, for the sake of this video, I hold a value or belief or opinion that smoking is bad, smoking is unhealthy. Maybe I even think smoking is gross, and I wouldn't choose to smoke in my life. Those are my values and my beliefs. But being tolerant means that I would not be mean or degrading or devaluing towards someone who chooses to smoke. So for my life, I might choose to not be around a person when they are smoking because maybe it affects my health, or I just don't like the smell, or whatever, for any number of reasons. But I still accept them as a human being, and that's their choice. They choose to smoke, I choose not to smoke, and that's the way it is. I don't approve of it for my life, but they're not me.
So you're able to tolerate that this is a habit of theirs, or a choice that they choose to make, and they can do that,
and I can choose not to.
That's right.
And that's good. That's
so you're not approving,
right?
But you're tolerating that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what I think sometimes happens is that people will view somebody only by that one part of their life. So we use that label all the time of smokers. So boom, so I put this label on somebody, and now I may not be as tolerant with that person because maybe I'm not, as understanding about, hey, it's been 4 hours since I've had a cigarette, and tough luck, you're not going to get a smoke break. And that can be hurtful to the person, but harmful to the relationship as well. And that's because of that lack of tolerance that happens. And then if we kind of bridge it over into the mental health world, if somebody is experiencing some mental health challenges and I'm not tolerant of that, I can even be invalidating about that. So I'm going to use depression as an example of if somebody's feeling depressed and I just tell them, no, you're not feeling depressed.
Right. Why can't you just get over it?
Absolutely. I'm not tolerant of that's where they're coming from. One, that can be very invalidating, which is very, very harmful, very, very hurtful, and that's damaging to our relationship. And so I think what that also prevents is that prevents me from really being able to understand, well, what is depression like for this person? So now we can't have a back and forth a conversation about it. I cannot understand how can I help this person because I'm not tolerant of, hey, this is where they're at.
And most likely, if somebody was experiencing depression and they were talking to a friend or family member or whoever about it, and that other person was invalidating, they were not tolerant or not understanding or not even willing to listen to what was going on with that person, probably it's only going to take one or very few of those kinds of negative interactions, and that person who is experiencing depression is not likely to go back to that other person and have a conversation again.
Right. Because
they feel invalidated. That's hurtful.
Exactly, absolutely. So I use all the time, the rule of 5. So for every one negative interaction that somebody has, they need to have 5 positive interactions around that same thing, just to tip the scales back to being even again. So that means they have to have 6 or more for it to become a positive or healing experience. And so that's very, very, very challenging, especially if that lack of tolerance is coming from a loved one or a big support in their life, somebody they care about. And so then it's just another barrier for the healing process to begin. That makes it very, very tough.
Right. And I think we see, as far as the stigma that goes around mental health issues and mental illness, I think a lack of tolerance aids in the stigma growing and getting bigger if people are not willing to try to understand what somebody is going through or what they have gone through. That makes people who are suffering from a mental illness not want to talk about it, not want to get the help that they really need. And we know what kind of problems can happen from that, from not getting the help that you need. So
absolutely, it's huge. And so that lack of tolerance, so I think it goes back to another thing that I was thinking of, was the idea of if somebody is experiencing some mental health challenges, it's not as easy to understand the challenges that they're going through. If I had my arm in a cast and in a sling, you could say, okay, so Andy's having a hard time, so I need to be tolerant of it. It's going to take him a little bit longer to open a bottle of ketchup.
Right.
But if somebody's suffering from depression, and I'm just like, man, what the heck is this guy's deal? You know, and I can't see all that stuff, so I'm not as tolerant as he's just having a tough day today, or he's just not going as fast or isn't as tolerant of other people. He doesn't have the patience that he used to have. Then that
it's harder to see mental illness than many medical conditions like a broken arm.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
I think that's another challenge of being tolerant. You don't have that visual cue to be tolerant of this challenge or that challenge. And so that's just another tough thing to kind of work through.
Yeah. So below the comments, we invite you to share how you view tolerance, how you would define tolerance, and how it fits in your life. So hopefully some of the things that we shared today do fit in your life, we're hoping. Maybe some of it may, some of it may not, but if it does,
work what works for you.
And leave the rest. You start it?
And we're on.
Welcome everybody, it's Kayla.
And Andy.
The title of our video today.
Correct.
So bad.
All right, ready?
Redo.